This episode of Pick Up the Six podcast is sponsored by Allbirds. I've been an Allbirds customer for years because their shoes look great, they're super comfortable, and they make shoes and clothes that are better for you and better for the planet by using revolutionary premium natural materials. As a runner, I'm also looking for a shoe that feels and fits great out on a run, and so I'm pumped to tell you about the Allbirds Tree Flyer. I have a pair and they are great. The Tree Flyer is lightweight, super springy, and wildly comfortable, making your running efforts of all shapes and sizes feel surprisingly effortless. They provide unbelievable cushion and comfort, so even your toughest runs are easier on your body. I noticed from step one when I put these on, they just felt great, and that's thanks to the Swift Foam midsole. It's lightweight and big on cushion and energy return. I recommend these shoes because I wear these shoes. I have the orange ones. Plus, they have loads of other great stuff too. And they're hooking you up with a free pair of Allbirds socks on your next order of $50 or more. Just use the promo code PICKUPTHESOCKS. Pretty good, right? Pick up the socks at allbirds.com on your next order of 50 or more, and you're getting a free pair of socks from those guys. Lace up the Tree Flyer and get running today at allbirds.com. That's allbirds.com. Welcome to another episode of Pick Up the Six podcast. And today is Veterans Day, and it almost goes without saying, but man, we are just so grateful for all of our veterans. That includes members of my family, members of your family, and those brave men and women who have worn our nation's uniform. We thank you. My guest today is John Davis, and he's the author of Combat to College, Applying the Military Mentality as a Student Veteran. John was an infantry squad leader in the 101st Airborne. He also taught English in Thailand and history to incarcerated teens in New York. And he's the most tattooed person with a Harvard degree. I hope you enjoy our conversation. Brian Jodas back with another episode of Pick Up the Six podcast. Grateful to have you guys with us. Grateful to have my guest, John Davis. And before that, just a quick shout out to all my friends at NGBN.TV. That's the National Grassroots Broadcasting Network. We've got a new home over there. More details to come, but we're going to be putting a lot of content up over on that platform. We're going to be streaming there soon enough. So just want to give some love to those guys. Grateful for Ian Hill, the entire crew over there, that what we're trying to do is create content to bring into the lives of men in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. Guys going through whatever they have in their walk of life, and we want to create a platform for them. And so not every story we tell is necessarily tailored towards just the fellas, but a lot of them are appealing in this Pick Up the Six vein. And so just want to give a shout out to my friends at NGBN.TV, and excited to have a new home there. And we'll be rolling out more details about that as we go. John Davis joins the show. He's the author of Combat to College. We're going to talk a lot more than just that book, but John, it's good to have you, man.
It's good to be here, Brian.
Excited to do this. And well, I'm just, you know what? I'm giving shout outs to everybody. Thanks to our friends at Podmatch for hooking us up and getting us going.
Yeah.
Like I've explained it before. You guys have heard me say this. It's like speed dating for podcasters and people looking to book guests. But we've got some good quality that's come out of that, man. So just grateful.
Yeah, I swiped right on you on Podmatch, so I'm glad you did the same.
The other day, it's like, yeah, that's like a guy I might be into.
Yeah,
so here
and
we are.
It's when you message someone, they don't message you back. It is almost like a date. Like, what? Oh,
Dude,
I'm not interestingly enough for you. I'm not attractive enough. My story isn't good enough.
Well, you know what? Whatever I read seemed like we were a match, and here we are. We're going to make some podcast gold, which is great. How's your day going, man? What's going on?
I'm doing great. I did not win the Powerball, or I wouldn't.
Yeah,
probably
I'm in
wouldn't
a
be here.
pool. I'm in a pool. We keep doubling down. We're like,
Yeah.
we're just gonna keep
Well, I
throwing
think
money
someone
at
won
this
on
thing.
California. I think someone won on California is what I just read.
Shoot.
So
All right.
I think that, I spent about $100 yesterday on tickets though, and then was sorely disappointed.
It was fun. Look, do you ever really expect to win? If you and I were banking our success,
I don't know why.
You felt good about it?
I felt confident. I was like, I don't know why I wouldn't win. Someone's got to.
Well, that's a fair point. Someone's got to. I never expect to. I've never, dude, I don't even win on scratch offs. Like I'm telling you, like never won anything in any kind of chance, like a scratch off or anything. Maybe a couple bucks here and there. But
you get a little rush from it. It's not like a military rush, but it's, you get a rush from it.
I was in a pool with, I don't know, 18, 19, 20, might even be like 20 of us pulling in. So, thought maybe we could ride off into the sunset, but that's
That's
okay,
dangerous
man. We'll
though.
keep working. Yeah.
Someone's whoever gets the tickets is going to bail on everybody. You hear about those lotto pools where people just, I mean, they relationships get destroyed.
Dude, if you don't have a solid foundation before that, I bet you it would unearth some weakness and cracks in the walls probably after that if you're not prepared. Because you're right, man. Like, think about all that comes with that, the responsibility. All of a sudden, everybody wants to know you. A friend and I were having a legit discussion, like maybe you put it in somebody else's name, and so nobody has to know it's you,
I
but
think you
they'd
can do
probably
like
find out.
in some states you have to be public. You have to like put your name out there. And in some states you can like do it blind or create a trust or something.
Right.
I looked into it because I was so confident I was going to win. I was like, oh,
Well,
I just have to
clearly.
create, get a lawyer.
I love it, man.
But
John
here I
Davis,
am. So didn't
grew
work.
up in Iowa. We're talking before we hit record. Wrestler, right? Went into the military. So tell me a little bit about just your journey. What got you into the army, and you end up in the 101st. So just tell us a little bit about that path, man.
Grew up, playing sports here in Iowa, kind of like a cornfield in my backyard. And everybody, you had an outdoor childhood, which
Mm,
I think we took for granted now that kids don't have outdoor childhoods
right.
anymore, but grew up outside playing sports and everything. And I really like the team mentality of sports. I really love team sports. I grew up wrestling, but even when you're wrestling's an individual thing, but it's done as a team. I mean, you're really in a unit with the wrestling room where you form strong bonds and camaraderie with people and things. And that mentality kind of took me into wanting challenges. And initially, I actually tried a mixed martial arts career.
Mm.
So I was doing cage matches when I was like 18, 19. Was not very good. And I remember getting like beat up after one fight pretty significantly because all the fights were at strip clubs. So you go to strip club, you sign up,
Sure,
you
you make you
fight.
feel a little bit better after you get your ass kicked.
Yeah. So I'm in the locker room after losing I think my second fight in a row, which, was never a good feeling. And one of the strippers was helping me get my sweatshirt on, and she was like, maybe this isn't for you." I was like, "Yeah, probably not." Especially when they came in, the promoter paid me $100 and a drink
Mm,
ticket, and I was like,
mm.
this is, so that kind of was like I need a challenge in my life, but I'm not sure the right kind of challenge. And that kind of led me into thinking about the military and then joining.
I'm not trying to be a jerk. That's great advice, Skylar. Thank you. Do you
Yeah,
remember?
right. I was like,
Do you
thanks.
do you remember her
You're
name?
probably right.
Do
Yeah.
you remember her
No,
name?
I
Did she
don't.
give you
I
her
mean,
real
she
name?
was
Yeah.
not no.
I'm sorry,
But she
man.
changed my life. So
Yeah. That was
I
good
should if
advice.
I
I
win the
mean,
lottery, I'll go help her. Yeah.
there's some good advice in there and some awareness, right? Like this isn't going to work for me.
Yeah. I mean,
Right.
you
So
see a
then you
lot
go
of
down the military path.
Yep. So then I went and joined the military, which was hugely great for me. I think nobody really regrets the military service. I mean, you kind of look back at it. I feel like every veteran really has three lives. You have your pre-military life, your military life, and your post-military life. And how I got into helping veterans, I was so kind of obsessed with those transitions because those create who you are. And we tend to view our military experiences in a lot of different ways. Um, but yeah, that's the military was always kind of home to me. And I medically retired, so I got out.
I got you. Today is November the 11th as we air this show, Veterans Day. Timely to have you on. So we're grateful for you, for all the veterans that have served our great nation. And as we do here, pick up the six, we've shared, man, countless stories, right? We're 120 something episodes deep. And I couldn't tell you the percentage of them are folks that have worn the uniform because we just feel such a debt of gratitude, right? To highlight those who have done something above and beyond themselves through service, purpose, and impact. Just that time, man, the 101st Airborne, right? Multiple deployments. How was that experience for you? And because it feels like you wanted to keep going, right? To keep sort of to help those after you were done. But just how was that experience?
Really loved Afghanistan. Afghanistan gave me a lot of gratitude for the life I had. I always had running water in my house, heat in the wintertime, air conditioning in the summertime. And you kind of know that type of poverty exists in the world, but it's a lot
Mm.
different when you actually see it, when you bump into people who are really living a difficult life, but still showing, resiliency. and there's so many stories, from years of deployments. What got me I initially wanted to be a teacher when I came out of the
Hmm.
military, and what got me into that was I worked on a team helping open up schools for girls in Afghanistan. And obviously, there's so much gender discrimination there in education. And I remember this one mission we were out, and they told us, "Hey, don't give any school supplies to girls. We're handing out school supplies, getting the school going." And this little girl ran up, and she was so cute, little green dress, reminded me of my niece at that time. And she's standing there kind of with her big eyes, and I gave her a pack of crayons, just like, hey, here, whatever, here, have some
Yeah,
crayons. Like, it's
yeah.
not a big deal. And she probably got about 8 steps away, and this older, I don't know, probably teenage boy just started beating the shit out of her, just grabbed her,
Really?
hit her, just for interacting with the soldier. And he's just, and I'm there, like, I'm gonna be on the news. I'm gonna create a massacre in this village in
Right,
about two
right.
seconds. Like, and uh and that instance and kind of other things like it, and seeing the reality of how a lot of the world lives, is what got me interested in education to begin with.
Dude, that's wild. And it's got to be just a memory, right? That you probably remember for a long time. And for most of us, a lot of the stories we try to share here is because I think we've quite frankly lost some perspective. We're pretty comfortable here.
Hmm.
And I think we've lost some perspective just as to how good we have it. And even when things aren't going great, and even when things are, quote unquote tough. And for many of us, look, some of y'all are carrying really hard things, but most of society doesn't face the kind of hardships like that kind of example, even where just girls in that community, like, no, that's not for you. Like, going to school is not for you. Sometimes I think it's hard for us to wrap our minds around that a little bit.
Yeah, and I think it is fortunate that veterans are kind of, given those level of challenges and hardships, because that really does make you who you are. I mean, you have to seek a challenging and meaningful life. And one of the things that I want to thank you for on Veterans Day is the civilian military gap in this country has just widened and widened over the course of the last few years. And I think
Mm,
things like this are how, veterans can get to know civilians, and civilians can get to know veterans, because we have become almost strangers to each other, it seems, over the course of the past 20 years, which is kind of difficult to understand, how you can fight wars for 20 years and become more and more separated from the
yeah.
public. And especially now we have, the recruiting crisis that's obviously big in military circles right now, with people not joining, and all that. I did 2 years as a recruiter before I got out. And so I understand the recruiting struggle, but the civilian military gap is something that I think is a slow moving crisis for the country.
Part of your journey includes degrees from St. John's and Harvard. You talk about being the most tattooed person with a Harvard degree. So I think that's pretty cool, and probably something a
That's my
little
claim to
different.
fame. Yeah, everybody needs like a tagline on
Right.
Instagram. So that's mine, most tattooed person with a Harvard degree.
How many, it's probably hard to say, right? So I'm going to ask a stupid question. How many tattoos do you have? I would guess a lot of them blend together. Can you put a count
Yeah,
on it?
my whole body's covered. So
Okay.
it's I have, like, like 90% of my body's tattooed. So it's
How
it's a
how
lot.
much, if not all of them, have meaning for you?
Um, I think that, I actually wrote an article on my website about tattoo therapy, because tattoos are something that really transform you, and they have such a connection with the military. I mean, tattoos and the military are so intertwined.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at any military formation, there's a whole bunch of different tattoos. And I've done everything from getting the drunk tattoo at 2 in the morning, across the street from the military base, to thoughtful tattoos about my mother and family that mean things to me and military units. But I don't think you'll find many veterans that are not tattooed at all. I think every veteran at least has one tattoo,
My dad
because
was. Go ahead.
you have these instances, you have these events and these places that mean so much to you,
Right.
and you want to remember them.
My dad is, pretty buttoned up, kind of straight and narrow kind of guy. But my brothers and I all got matching tattoos when we each turned 18, sort of a family thing. And he always said, "Oh, yeah, when I retire, 36 years in the Air Force, right? When I retire," and finally he did in 2013, we said, "All right, time to pony up." And he did it. So I got to give him credit on that one, which is,
Yeah, it's
he
cool,
doesn't have as
especially when
many
you
as
get
you, but
it
that's all right.
when you're that old. But yeah,
Yeah,
and
man. He
actually
was like,
tattoos.
he was probably, he might not have been 60 at the time, but he was pretty close to it.
Yeah, the first
So,
military tattoos were samurai. They used to tattoo their village on them so they'd know where to take the body back to after they fell.
oh, I don't think I knew
So
that.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, and tattoos and warriors have long been connected through history from like Native Americans, from, everything to signify battles you've been in and things like that. So it's, if you look at like Vikings are tattooed, I got a few Viking
Yeah,
tattoos. So I love
I dig
Viking
it.
culture.
I dig it, man. I love the story and the meaning behind it. And I'm always a fan of that, right? I got a friend who's got, man, pretty much every tattoo he's got. And he's got sleeves and calves and all that. They've got sort of a scripture meaning to them, right?
Mhm.
And another guy that has things interwoven. So those are always cool stories to me. And that culture part that you're talking about, that's pretty neat. I'm gonna go back and maybe look in that a little bit more, maybe read a little bit. I bet you there's some good writing and some good books about those cultures and probably how it tied them all together, right? Sort of a unifying kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And tattoos do, like you said, they tell a story of your life. I mean, I always tell people, hey, don't go to the grave without a tattoo. Make sure you get one. Even if you did it like your dad and get it when you're
Yeah,
way
he did it.
older, it's
He
an
did it.
it's a bucket list experience.
Yeah, that's right. So when did you know? It sounds like kind of in your military career, like, hey, I want to get into some coaching. I want to help some people out. I know you started coaching student vets while you were at the VA. So tell me a little bit about that experience and how that kind of generated for you.
Well, I kind of lucked into it really because, when student veterans get to school, we tend to be older. We tend to need employment. There's additional things that go along being a student veteran. And so many veterans, their first stop after the military is college because the GI Bill is obviously
Mm-hmm.
one of the great things, about the military and military service is you get to go to school. But just getting the GI Bill doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get the degree. So I lucked into a job, I say lucked into, because my job was to help student veterans while I was a student veteran. So I would do the paperwork for like certifying their benefits. I would help them tours the school and everything. And that gave me a really up close look at the things that veterans were doing that, were screwing them up during education
Hmm.
and the stuff I was doing. So I kind of set out to be a role model for incoming student veterans. And that led to me making a list. And I call it John's College Tips, because I'm so
Yeah.
creative. And then those tips eventually morphed into the chapters of the book that I wrote to help
Yeah.
student veterans.
So I was going to say, I could feel it as we're talking. I'm like, I bet John sort of develops this process. He's sort of just putting it all down on paper. And either you or someone was like, hey, man, I'm pretty sure this is a book. How'd that work out?
Yeah, people were telling me like, because I just had this list of tips and then that kind of morphed into chapters and I do one-on-one coaching. And through one-on-one coaching to people, it's very easy to see the mistakes other people are
Mm,
making and harder to see them within yourself. So there's a lot of little things, the student veterans are doing they're creating obstacles for themselves in their education. So I wanted to write something because mainly the book didn't exist and that educational experience is so important, especially when you think about things like people with college degrees kill themselves less. People with college degrees are addicted less. People with college degrees are homelessness less. People with college degrees have better relationships. People with college degrees make more money. It's like so you have all these protective factors
mm.
around, getting a college degree that really help out. But the GI Bill just provides the opportunity, and I wanted to give veterans a guide to make it to the graduation stage because I find college to be an excellent bridge between the military and civilian worlds, but it's easy to fall off that bridge. And when you're on that bridge, you can find out, hey, you can rediscover your identity because your
Yeah.
first mission post service has to be to craft some type of personal identity because nothing's really as wrapped up into you as the military is. It's just an all-encompassing dominating force in your life. So you have to kind of shake off that military mentality, but take forward what's helpful and leave behind what's not.
My friend Jason from Pre-Veteran, and we had him on Pick Up the Six months ago, talked a lot about rewiring a lot of veterans in that transitioning phase. Not in a bad way, meaning you are just wired to process and think things through in a very specific way that is advantageous for us having the most lethal fighting force on the planet. Some of that needs to change a little bit in that transition. Are those things that you picked up on and saw along the way as you're going through this process?
Yeah, you can't really be who you were before the military because that person doesn't exist anymore. And you
Hmm.
can't be who you were in the military because you're operating, like you said, in a different context.
Yeah.
So, kind of rediscovering who you are is the first mission for veterans. And college provides a good place to do that because you have a little bit of structure, a little bit of routine. Everybody kind of thinks of the military as complicated, but it's really not. I mean, you wake up, someone yells at you, you do your job, you're told what to wear, you're told where to be. It's not a complicated thing. It's the civilian world that's more chaotic because there's less structure, there's less guidelines to it.
Mm.
So college is a good place for veterans to kind of, refigure themselves out uh, right when they get out of the military.
I remember when
But
I
yeah,
was
I think
going
that
through some, yeah, I was going through some work things. We were in the middle of basically starting and launching a digital media firm in DC, and so we had a lot to do, but also had just a different kind of structure in life. And I remember my dad being like, I'll be honest with you, I don't think I could do it. Right. That's a guy who'd spent 30 something years in the military because of some of those structural components. What did you learn about yourself? Right. I always like to ask this of authors because usually there's quite a journey that goes into putting something like this together, man, putting your heart and soul into paper, putting it out there. So John, what'd you learn about yourself doing it?
I think writing is a real reflective thing. And I've really set out to be, an author. I set out to help student veterans
Mm.
because, like I mentioned, so many student veterans, you're starting your civilian life at college. And how you do there, especially that first year, really has an impact on the course, the trajectory of your life. Because if you go to college and say you end up dropping out, then all of a sudden it kicks off kind of a negative spiral of events. But momentum really matters, whether you're on the battlefield, in college, or in life. And veterans that get through that first year of school are more likely to make it to graduation. So I wanted to give them a guide for the first year. So I was mainly looking to be useful, but secondly, I was looking to be kind of entertaining. So I tell stories in there about
Yeah.
my own experiences, about other student veterans' experiences, and I wanted it to be kind of words from a friend. Like I really struggled when I first got to college. I remember I was like in trouble like as a 30-year-old. I was in the counselor's office because I threatened another student like the first week of school,
Right.
because we were in a group project thing and he wasn't doing his part. And of course in the military, like, hey, your responsibility to
Yeah.
the
Like you need
team,
to
to the
get your
group.
shit together. Like you're big.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you can't
That
talk to
doesn't
19 year
fly in
olds
that
like that.
atmosphere.
No. I
Right.
was like, hey, I'm gonna fucking beat your ass if you don't do this.
Right.
And of course, you can't threaten people in college, or you're not supposed to. And
Sure.
I couldn't even get through a full sentence without cursing. I remember the professor being
Mm.
like asking me to stay after, and they were like, hey, John, I love your contributions, but you have to watch your language. And I was like, I don't even know what you're talking about. And he goes,
Yeah.
you said
Yeah.
the F
It's just
word like
happening.
4 times. And I was like, ah. So, it's so in me. And I mean, so student veterans face all these obstacles. My first
Mm.
class, I show up like 20 minutes early because that if you're not early, you're late.
Right.
And being late is such an unforgivable sin in military culture. And I'm
Yep.
sitting there and sitting there and sitting there. And eventually I'm like, I'm in the wrong room. But then finally, like right before the bell rings, right before class supposed to start, a whole all the students come in with more than half the students coming in late on the first day, which is just the craziest thing in the world to me, that would happen. So you do have to rewire yourself a lot to operate in a new environment. And I wanted to prepare veterans for their new battlefield, which is college.
Yeah.
And your success or failure there has a huge impact on the trajectory of your life.
It sure does. All right, don't give away all the goods, but right, people are listening. They're like, man, it sounds pretty good. I want to know a little bit more about what's in this book. So tell us what else they can expect when they go pick it up.
Well, I went from being a community college dropout when I was 18 to have a master's degree from Harvard. Not because I'm particularly smart, which, you'll discover if you listen to more of my stuff or read more of my stuff, but because I understood and unlocked the advantages that veterans have in the classroom. It's so
Mm.
easy for veterans, especially combat veterans, to focus in on their negative experience in the military, on the PTSD, on, the you're probably broke, things like that, instead of treating your military experience as a launch pad as to something better. So you know how to be on time, like I mentioned, which doesn't seem like a lot, but in today's world, I mean that's big. You know how to be disciplined. And taking that discipline in your education and treating your education as seriously as a military mission is how you're going to be successful. Because you're not going to fail an exam if you plan for it, you prep for it, you use all your resources like you would in the military operation. So that's what my book does, is it kind of uh lays out the battlefield in a way that veterans will understand it so they can be successful in college.
Nice. His name is John Davis. The book is Combat to College, Applying the Military Mentality as a Student Veteran. What's teaching English in Thailand like?
That's fun. I love teaching English in Thailand. Yeah, because the students they bow to you a lot, and of course
Okay.
everybody likes being bowed to, and they're so respectful of of education and teachers and things like that. I mean, when I taught, like, did my student teaching in the States, you had like seventh graders telling you to fuck off,
Crazy.
and
Yeah.
I mean, how I mean,
Yeah.
anyone listening knows that that's reality a teachers face.
Yeah.
And in Thailand, all of the students are very, very respectful and they're into education. If I hand out 30 homework assignments, I'm going to get 30 back. Like there's no question about it. I remember when I realized I couldn't really teach in the States, at least not the way that I wanted to, was I had this student who refused to take off his earbuds during class. And I was like, "Hey man, take off your earbuds." He's like, "No." And then, which I'm not used to hearing no, especially coming from the
Right.
military. So my
Right.
my first instinct is like, I'm gonna
I'm going
I'm gonna
back
slap
harder.
this seventh
Yeah.
grader.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah.
slap this seventh grader.
Wow.
And then I'm like, okay. So after class, I call his mother, and his mother's like, he's 13. He's your problem. You have to deal with him. And I was like, oh my God.
Whoa.
And then I had another mother came in, and her son said something really mean to a young girl in the class. So I said, hey, this is what your son said. And she's like, he said he didn't say it. And I was like, what? And she goes, well, I don't know who to believe, you or him. And I was like, me, I'm fucking wearing a tie. I'm the adult, the teacher. You're
I
sensitive.
shouldn't laugh. I'm sorry, man. I really shouldn't laugh. Just but that
It's
response
just,
is like, you should
it's
believe me.
frustrating.
I'm telling you the
Yeah.
truth. Like he's
Why would
lying
I
to you.
make this up? I don't want
Right.
to be here. I don't want to be having this conversation at 5 p.m.
Right.
on a Wednesday
Right.
with
Right.
about your son.
Hey, you think
I
I
want to go
want to
home and
start this up? Like this does me no good to be talking to you about this if it wasn't true.
yeah. And so
Wow.
things like that. So then when I got over to teaching in Asia, I was really impressed with the students'
Mm,
discipline, which I kind of related that a little bit to the military, to where the students are in their seats, paying attention, like, a military classroom.
right. Yeah. And whether you like it or not, you're going to listen and pay attention. But it seems like those kids just genuinely actually do. And that just must be, it's a culture thing. It's the way in which,
Hmm.
they're raised. It's look, not everybody in the classroom is going to tell you to F off, but man, having seen those experiences, it's quite a challenge, especially when you're like, I mean, I'm trying to do good here. Like I'm trying to help. Like I really am trying to help these kids out. Got to meet me in the middle or something.
Yeah, and education today is kind of disaster, especially with
Yeah, it's
with
a little wild,
COVID
man.
now.
Yeah,
So
it's a little wild.
yeah.
My sort of my case in point is, and I get there's not a lot we can do to fix it. I think there are ways to get there. It's gotten so big in that, man, it's a lot of adults making a lot of decisions that I think are about a lot of other adults and not always about the end user, which I think is the student. But that's a conversation for another day. Another challenge, right? It's one thing to travel abroad. Uh, Teaching history to incarcerated teens in New York got to come with some challenges. What was that experience like for you?
There was parts of it that are really rewarding, but of course it was super frustrating as well, because by the time you get to these kids, they're already I just did it for probably half a year.
Yeah.
I taught incarcerated kids,
How old were
and
they, John?
16 to 20
And
without a
what
high.
kind of stuff? It was just you're just teaching just guys.
Yeah, it was only men in the program,
Yeah. What kind of
or
stuff have
I guess
most of these
boys.
guys done? Just give us an idea.
I mean, it's pretty much all violent crime. You're not locked up unless you're doing something, relatively violent, which
Yeah.
is kind of funny. It's not funny, but it's interesting when you're there, like, God, this kid, stabbed his stepmother to death or something like that. And then
Wow.
I'm trying to teach him, high school history so he can pass a GED. And of
Wow.
course, a lot of the kids, what I liked about that was you could curse at the kids in there, you could, and
Sure.
you, yeah. I mean, nobody really cared about him, which made me want to care about him, because a lot
Yeah.
of these kids are, come from terrible homes and things like that. And,
Oh man,
you
a
really
lot of
kind
it
of
is
do.
that. I mean, it's in their control to make proper decisions, but and many times it's someone out of their control too, and it's just
Yeah, they're
you
victims
probably
before they're offenders most of the time. And they come
yeah
from such terrible families. It's like, obviously you ended up here, like your father's in
yep
prison, his father's in prison. Like it's, kind of that cycle. And, what I liked most there was getting able to mentor the kids. Like I probably did more work as far as
mm,
like
yeah
talking to them while we played basketball and things like that. And they respected me more because of my military experience, more than like the other teachers. Cause it's like, I've seen combat, and they
right.
all knew that. So we kind of had, that in common as well. Cause a lot of those kids have seen their own form of combat.
Look, I mean, the things that you were teaching him out of the books important, but I would bet those one-on-one conversations, playing basketball or doing whatever, probably had more of an impact on them than things you might have read them out of a book. Did you ever have a moment leaving one of those sessions where you're just like, I don't think I can go back in there? Or were you always steadfast and being
You take
dedicated to
their
it?
as any kind of teacher, you kind of take your some baggage home with you. You kind of take
Mm,
some of their problems back home and, in your own backpack. And for me, I couldn't really continue doing it because the wins were like so few and far between. Like we
mm,
have a pass rate for the GED of like less than 3%. Like
yeah.
it's not good because a lot of these kids are reading at like a first grade level and I'm trying to teach them, about the Constitution or whatever. So it's just impossible to do. And wanted to get upstream of problems where it's like you have to start reaching these kids when they're before they're commit their violent crimes. But I think that I took all those experiences of teaching and kind of like applied it in my book to being, to help student veterans because a lot of issues student veterans face are the non-traditional issues that students face. Like I said, we tend to be older. Over 50% of student veterans have some type of service-connected disability. You have to require employment, so you have to
Mm-hmm.
balance all of that, and you're more likely to have a family. You're more likely to be married or divorced like me, but you still take that baggage
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah. What does John Davis do to keep that baggage in check, right? To keep working, to keep yourself grounded, accelerating, moving forward. What are some of your things that sort of help you, right, keep moving forward?
For me, it's about constantly challenging myself. Like I like to stay on the move. I like to think that if I stay busy enough, which I try and do, then my PTSD, my problems
Mm,
can't catch up to me. Like so I stay busy, I stay organized, and I stay challenging myself. And there's lots of different ways to challenge yourself. I found education to be a good challenge because, like I said, I was like, okay, I'll apply to Harvard. Okay, now that's a huge challenge to go there and finish the degree. Then you have physical challenges, you have emotional challenges. You have to keep challenging yourself, especially as a guy or, as a young man, because you need to keep that edge. It's so easy after you either take off the uniform or you get done playing sports or stop competing to kind of, hit the cruise control, which that's what frustrates me a lot about the veteran community is you see these veterans who do incredible things while they're serving. And then they get out and it's like their engine stops running. They kind of
yeah,
stop pursuing
sure.
challenges. And the cool thing about the military, and sports is they put challenges in front of you. They put obstacles in front of you for you to overcome. And then when you get out, you have to put those obstacles in front of yourself because it's very easy to settle into a routine, a comfortable life. But a comfortable life is kind of a slow death too.
That's right. If you're a veteran listening, or if you have a loved one, right, who is serving, right, maybe transitioning out of the military soon and thinking about what to do next, and if they're feeling overwhelmed with the idea of maybe going to college or going back to college or whatever that may be, let's give you some good advice and some good news. And I want to give a shout out to those universities across our country that are embracing the veteran community. I'll give you an example. I'm in Apex, North Carolina. About an hour and 10 minutes south of me is Fayetteville State University. It's not a very big school. It's a historically Black college and university, but it is a great veteran resource in the North Carolina system. And I think it's actually, probably leading the way across the country in many aspects. And the reason I bring it up, John, I'd love your thoughts too, is they have a way in which, based on your military experience and some certifications that you might already have and some things you did throughout your military career, you could walk into a bachelor's program, right? Or a certification program already with some credits. So there is
Mm.
good news out there that, like, you're not always starting from scratch. You're not always starting from ground zero. You might be able to walk in on day one and go pursue a degree or something that might lead to sort of phase 2.0 of your life with some credits already. So that's worth checking into and looking around for maybe universities or places of higher education that might have programs in place for veterans. What have you seen out there that might be helpful?
Yeah, there's so much out there. I think a lot of people view the GI Bills only for traditional education, sitting in the classroom, but you can use the GI Bill now for so many different things. You can use it for, the vocational training. You can use
Mm-hmm.
apprenticeships, police academies, flight schools, scuba school, all these different things, in order to help yourself. I
Yeah.
mean, so many Americans plunge themselves so deep into debt to go to school, and a lot of veterans who have the GI Bill and can essentially go for free choose not to go, and a lot that start don't finish. So I want to give veterans first the confidence that education's for you. A lot of people think there's three life choices kind of when you get out of high school. You have the military, you have workforce, and you have college. And veterans, traditionally chose the military. So it's like, education's not for me. And it's tough to go back to school. When I first got to college, I was like 30. So you feel like you're going backwards in life. But the veteran life isn't really as linear as, we like to think. I mean, there's lots of ups and downs to it. And it doesn't matter if you're 30, you're 40, you're 50. Learning is for everyone. Self-growth is for everyone. Even if you're not learning in a traditional environment like a college, you have to stay learning. You have to stay pushing yourself. Listen to podcasts, read books, talk to people. Don't only, scroll on your phone all day, because it's not going to help you.
That's good advice for everybody listening, quite frankly, to be honest with you. His name's John Davis. John, tell them where they can go, man. Find out more about you, find out more about the book, follow you, all that good stuff. Give us an info dump.
My website is johnhdaviswriter.com, and I have my blog there where I have different articles, about therapy and things like that. I'm a big fan of kind of non-traditional therapy, finding your own forms of therapy. And education is one form, one form of therapy. Other therapies I write about are like travel therapy, tattoo therapy, and things like that. So kind of any way, that can help you, because I do feel like veterans along with society have kind of become over medicated and underhelped by a lot of the medical institutions and the VA. So on my website, I have my book, Combat College here, and I also have a student veteran semester journal, which I did, which takes veterans through like a weekly planner. It has goals, tips, motivation, kind of like how to budget your money, because your economic health
you're like, what
plays
do
a
I
lot
do now?
into
This is
mental
all great, but what do we do now? Right?
Yeah, so it takes you through a 16-week semester. So week 1 all the way to 16, helps you study all those types of things. I also have a free coaching program that I developed for student veterans. If you're looking to help student veterans, or if you're in an institution, this coaching program's for free on my website. I developed it with some expert coaches to help student veterans. And buy books on Amazon, Combat to College, and I'm on Instagram, John H. Davis Writer. So
yeah. Guys, go check them out. And if you know somebody that needs to listen to this episode, this one feels to me like you guys would be listening like, oh, I got somebody in mind who needs to hear this, right? Maybe student veteran or somebody getting ready to make that transition. Sounds like John's got some great things for him. John, this has been great, man. Hope you had a great day with us. Hope you have a great Veterans Day. And it was good to talk to you today. It seemed to work out pretty well for our timing here. So really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, hey, I'm super excited about it. Like I said, I think that, every American has to think about how we can close the civil military gap, and how the military can become more connected, to the civilian population, and vice versa.
Well said. He's John Davis. He's the author of Combat to College, Applying the Military Mentality as a Student Veteran. I'm Brian Jodis. That's been this episode of Pick Up the Six Podcast.